And then that's why at the end of the day, the first thing that should come from our research is that everyone should be reflecting critically on what they eat as the
Oh,
first thing to do.
this is gonna be
What
a long night if I do
Yeah.
that.
So Zaza, what did you asked me what I had for breakfast? What did you have for breakfast?
Well, I woke up super late and I just had a cup of instant coffee
Right.
with oat milk. But
And
the
you
oat
have oat
milk,
milk. Why do you have oat milk?
um, I think
Because
it's
you
just some sort of erroneous belief. I convinced myself that I'm intolerant to a whole bunch of things. I've mentioned at the
Mm,
beginning that I'm a bit of a hypochondriac,
mm,
and these fads will just come and go. You know, one day I'll think, oh, I'm allergic to gluten, and I'll eliminate
mhm.
all gluten
Yeah.
products, and then the next day
Yeah.
I'm gonna be like, I'm allergic to milk, and then
Yeah.
I'm gonna eliminate
I know.
milk.
And so the ultra processed food industry loves you.
I can imagine that.
Right?
Yes,
It loves
yeah.
you because you're convinced that oat milk is milk, but it's not. It's nothing to do with milk. Like milk is something that comes out of, either you breastfeed and you get milk that the infant gets, or you get it from a cow or a goat or something like that from their udders. You don't get it by taking oats and spinning them around in a food processor and then it turns into a liquid, and that's what you're thinking is a reasonable thing to put in coffee, and it probably tastes awful. So but the food industry loves people like you because you then, okay, you eliminate gluten. Okay, oh my goodness, I mean that means if you take them, go into a supermarket and start, really indulging in the things that all say gluten free. You should turn them around and look at the packages and look at how many things are in there that are made in a factory and things that you would recognize on the backs of that package. I'm guessing that probably not a lot of things. And yet you think you're doing a good thing by taking gluten out of your diet. But maybe it's something, I mean, one thing that why some people feel a little bit better when they take gluten out of their diet is that one of the things that people are suggesting that might be happening for some people is that they are reacting to the herbicides and the toxins that we
The
put
pesticides.
on the
Yeah.
pesticides that are put on those those crops, and that's what is irritating your gut lining and causing a problem, as opposed to gluten. So it could be gluten, but it could be the way uh, we are dealing with crops and growing our crops, and we're taking so many shortcuts at the moment in our food. So if you wanted to go really, like, if you seriously were celiac and you shouldn't be eating gluten, then I would say never eat anything that says that it's gluten free on a packet, because they're just there to try to make money out of you. So if
Okay.
I was having to go gluten free, I wouldn't eat bread. Why would you eat something that if I throw it at a wall, it's like a brick? It could break a window. Is that something that you want to eat? I mean, it tastes awful, right?
This is amazing advice. But as you
So
can see, this is a good example because I feel like it's a minefield out there.
it
I'm gonna
is,
read an
and so I want.
article that's gonna say milk is poisoning you,
Of
and
course you
then
do.
the next day I'm gonna read an
Of
article
course you
milk is
are.
not poisoning you, and then on top of that we have these marketing tricks. Like I'm gonna
Yes,
look at the box of cereal and it's gonna say included vitamin zinc,
exactly.
added vitamin C. So I'm just like
Absolutely.
standing here. I'm like, what's going on, and what should I really do?
Exactly. So I really want to keep this simple. It is simple. It really isn't hard. Eat what your great grandmother would recognize as food, and that should take you a long way. So, did your great grandmother have those ultra processed cereal products available? No. Might have had, eggs and bacon and some real sourdough bread that was, baked locally, at your local bakery, of meat that would have been grass fed, grown in your pastures rather than corn fed, and in these feedlots that we have now. So if you start, if you embrace that concept of eating foods that aren't in a packet, that aren't in a shiny packet, that have got 1,000 ingredients on the back, things that, your fruits and vegetables, things that you get at your farmers markets, your nuts, your seeds, your real your healthy fats, things like your things that are high in your omega-3 fatty acids, like your fish, your olive oil is your main oil that you would use in cooking. Simplify it, and don't be bought in by someone who wants to make a lot of profit off of selling you something that isn't a real food. So if you take that simple advice, then it shouldn't be hard. That most of us shouldn't have a dairy intolerance. There are some, but it may well be that you're reacting to something completely different, and that there's an advantage to the food industry to make you think that you shouldn't eat a real food, right? Let's start, oatmeal, oat milk. Oh God, I mean, it's just the concept is just, unless you honestly have been tested and you have a dairy intolerance, I bet, I'm guessing in Germany, you may well be able to get real, raw milk completely unalterated straight from the cow, but tested to make sure that there's no pathogens. That's the way we should be drinking milk.
I love how with your blessing now I'm going to be able to dominate my friends, with your knowledge. All of those
Well,
friends who are ordering oatmeal cappuccinos, I'm going to be like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I personally haven't embraced those what I
What do
would
you
call,
think?
they're not
Yeah,
even milk, right?
yeah. What do you think of this organic bio sticker things?
Oh,
Like if I go buy
yeah.
milk, should I go for the extra option with the organic and bio and pay more, or is the regular store, bought milk
Yeah.
completely
I mean,
sufficient? Because
that
you
is
did
tricky.
mention farmers markets.
Yeah. I mean, the organic sticker has, it gives you the ability to sell it for a profit, right? And really, did it cost more to grow it? It could. There's the possibility of that. But also, something that we kind of go, oh, I've heard organic is good, so I'll pay more for something that says it's organic. So there's a useful website, and it changes every year, but it's if you just Google clean the Dirty Dozen Clean 15, and you'll find the foods that you really should be purchasing as organic, because the benefit of organic is that it hasn't been sprayed technically by pesticides. And we should be worried about the amount of pesticides that we're eating and we're consuming, because we do think that they're having an effect in a lot of different ways. First of all, there are some that are identified carcinogens. Others we know they're having an effect on our microbiome. So that's your gut lining, and it's irritating it, and it's inflaming it, and it's leading to, a whole bunch of gastrointestinal symptoms. So IBS is on the rise, irritable bowel syndrome. And so those are things that may well be exacerbated by the pesticides that we're using on our food. So we need to be mindful of those things, and that might be a reason to buy organic. But there are some foods that you don't necessarily need to eat them organic, because the amount of residue is being identified as being present there is far lower than in other produce. So that's why I just recommend that you get the most up-to-date knowledge and go and have a look at the clean, the Dirty Dozen Clean 15, Dirty Dozen, meaning the vegetables and fruits that you should probably eat as organic, versus the ones that are probably okay for you to eat, even regardless of whether or not they've been treated with pesticides. So, it's unfortunate that it's so hard to navigate our way through the food environment, but because there's so many competing messages, as you say, one day they'll tell you don't eat milk or don't drink milk, and other days they'll say it's one of the greatest foods around. So there's, and there's, some people will say don't eat meat, and others will say absolutely, and all of these different messages. And we also have to acknowledge that we are all different, we're all individual, people, and some of us do react to certain things as a consequence of of our history, and other people can get away with eating foods that don't seem to irritate them. But I think if you start with the principle of just eating real food, you might find that anything that's been causing you problems will disappear. So that really is the first step. Just eat real food. And um, and then if that's still not helping, that's when you might decide, let me start eliminating certain things from my diet, like gluten or like dairy. But start with the eating real food first principle. And as long, hopefully, you know what I mean by real food.
Yeah. By now, I think I got it. But unfortunately, I think most of us go the opposite way. We read an article and then we just eliminate a random thing instead of
Yes.
just resetting. But this
Yes.
is this is great. This is fantastic advice.